Tonight, Poirot and Hastings are a very long way from London drawing rooms. We're on the edge of Ireland at Valencia Island, music, where the Atlantic smashes itself to pieces against the rocks, and one white lighthouse keeps its lonely watch over the dark. In the light at Foilhomurrum, music Poirot is summoned to a remote light station where a keeper has fallen to his death during music, a storm. His body never recovered. A missing page from the logbook, a suspiciously large life insurance policy, whispers of stolen oil and altered beams, and a widowed wife who insists the sea is being blamed for a music crime it did not commit. As the storms roll in, and the light itself, music, is tampered with, Poirot must decide whether this is simple misfortune, a smuggling racket gone wrong, or calculated murder disguised as one more name lost to the waves. This story is an explicit homage to Agatha Christie and Hercule Poirot, the voice of Hastings, music, the sort of puzzle, the moral texture. But the plot, characters, and text are entirely our own fan fiction, not an adaptation of any existing Christie music work, and not affiliated with the Christie estate. It's also music, loosely threaded around a real historical mystery from Valencia's lighthouse history, music which we explore briefly in the epilogue. But what you're about to hear is fiction, from start to finish. Music. A practical note. YouTube has fully demonetized Nocturnal Tales. Views on this channel no longer pay anything. If you want Evenings with Poirot, music, and Hastings to continue, the ways that genuinely support the work now are Patreon. That's the main lifeline. Early music access, ad-free episodes, and our mystery ebooks on the higher tiers. Buy me a coffee if you just want to tip us for our work. And listening on Rumble, Spotify, or other podcast platforms by searching for Nocturnal Tales. Those plays still generate revenue. Here on YouTube, you can still subscribe, like, comment, and share to keep the channel visible, even if the platform itself has stopped paying for the content. Now, settle in. Listen for the slow turn of the lamp and the crash of the Atlantic below, and follow Poirot as he asks a very simple question. Music. When a man vanishes from a lighthouse, did the sea really claim him, or did someone help him over the edge? Chapter 1. The Widow of the Lighthouse. I confess I had not expected our journey to Ireland to end at such a lonely extremity of the coast. We had left Valencia harbor at dusk, fied across the short channel by a taciturn boatman, whose silence encouraged neither levity nor questions. The Atlantic surged around the skiff. Beyond the lee of the harbor wall, the sea began at once to heave with that sinister rhythm, particular to oceanic coastlines. Poirot, wrapped in his heavy coat and holding his bowler hat firmly, seemed unperturbed. A faint smile glimmered beneath the immaculately trimmed mustache. Observe, Hastings, the waves. They beat, with the persistence of duty, tireless. One thinks of the men who watch from the lighthouse. Always, the vigilance. Yes. I muttered something about preferring a warm fire, but Poirot merely raised his eyebrows in amusement. Our host awaited us on the island proper. Inspector O'Shea of the Kerry Constabulary, a man broad of shoulder and weathered of face, whose handshake was like gripping an oar. He guided us to a small cottage near the western cliffs. There we met Mrs. Ellen Bowl, the widow. She rose when we entered, pale with dark circles beneath restless eyes. Her voice was scarcely above a whisper. "You came because the inspector wrote of doubts," she said. "Doubts about my husband's death." Poirot inclined his head. "Madame, I come only to see. It is the little discrepancies that interest Hercule Poirot. If there is nothing, then I shall say so. If there is something," he shrugged lightly. The cottage smelled faintly of sea-ater and paraffin. Above the mantel hung a small framed photograph. A man in lighthouse uniform, his expression somber yet steady. "My husband Michael served at the West Lighthouse for 15 years, she said. "He was no green lad. He would not fall." Inspector O'Shea cleared his throat. Official conclusion was accidental fall during the storm on the 9th. We searched the coast for days, but the sea leaves little. Mrs. Boyle's hands twisted in her lap. There was a logbook. Michael wrote in it daily. After he disappeared, one page was torn out. The inspector claims it was weather damage, but Poirot raised a finger gently. A missing page. A curious thing. O'Shea shifted uncomfortably. The keepers reported that the window blew in during the gale. Rain soaked several pages. Mrs. Boyle shook her head. One entire leaf neatly gone, and the insurance. "Hush now," the inspector warned. Poirot steepled his fingers. "Insurance, madam?" Her voice trembled. "Michael took a policy months before. $500. The company delayed payment due to the missing body. They sent an investigator from Cork. He questioned everyone, then left abruptly on the morning boat. 2 weeks later, word reached us. He drowned off the Mayo coast. 2 men dead and both connected to the insurance," I murmured. Poirot regarded Mrs. Boyle long and steadily. "Madame, what do you believe?" She looked to the floor. "That the sea did not take my husband. Someone else did." Later that night, in our modest lodgings overlooking the black swell below, Poirot lit a small oil lamp and examined notes in his pocketbook. "Hastings, let us consider the facts as presented. One keeper vanishes during a storm, a missing page in the duty log, a life insurance policy recently taken, an investigator drowned shortly after visiting." "Coincidence," I suggested, though my voice lacked conviction. "Always you reach for the convenient explanation, mon ami. Yet coincidences like storms can be manufactured. You agree with the widow? You suspect murder?" Poirot leaned forward. Shadows from the lamp deepened the lines of his face. "I suspect that something did not occur as it was reported, whether it is murder, fraud, or simple human desire disguised by tragedy. That we shall see." There came a knock at the door. Inspector O'Shea stepped inside, hat in hand. "You'll have your chance to see the place yourself," he said gruffly. "The keepers consented to speak with you tomorrow, but tread lightly. Men who live with the sea do not enjoy outsiders stirring ghosts." Poirot nodded. "The truth may disturb, but it is the truth nonetheless." Outside, the wind keened along the cliffs, and the steady flash of the lighthouse swept across the dark water, an unwavering pulse in the night. Something about its rhythm seemed off, a fraction irregular. Pooh noticed it too. "Hastings, do you observe the light? It's flashing." "Yes." "Count." I did. 1, 2, 3. Poirot stopped me after several rotations. "The flash interval is wrong by almost half a second." "That could be the storm damage," O'Shea muttered. Poirot shook his head. "None. That is recalibration or tampering." The inspector stiffened. "Careful what you imply." Poirot smiled faintly. "I imply nothing. I observe. Tomorrow we visit the lighthouse." He closed his notebook. "Prepare yourself, Hastings. This island, it hides more than the rocks beneath the waves." The lamp sputtered. Outside, the Atlantic crashed endlessly. I felt a chill quite separate from the wind. If the sea had not swallowed Michael Boyle, then some human hand had pushed him toward it. And if so, that hand remained here on the island within sight of the very light meant to protect mariners from danger. It was then that I first sensed Elise O'Malley's presence, a name not yet spoken, but which tomorrow would surface from the depths like a corpse rising from the tide. Chapter 2. The Keepers of the Light. The morning came sheathed in mist. Valentia Island lay muffled beneath a gray pall, the sea and sky indistinguishable, save for the dull white churn of breakers smashing against the rocks. A supply cart carried us along a narrow track towards Foilhomurrum Point, its wheels jarring against stones. Our driver, a taciturn lad of 16, spoke not a word. and the horse seemed similarly resigned to silence. The lighthouse rose before us like a chalk column materializing from the fog. Beyond it only the void where the Atlantic began. A stack of barrels sat near the wall. Beside them, a squat outbuilding used by the keepers during storms. The yard smelled heavily of oil and seaweed. 2 men awaited us. The senior keeper, Patrick Kelly, had a gaunt face and a permanent squint, as if the wind had taught his eyes to narrow against salt and spray. Beside him stood the assistant, Seamus Quinn, younger and more restless, his cap pulled low. Inspector O'Shea made tour introductions. Poirot inclined his head politely. "It is most kind that you receive us," he said. "We intrude only to clarify certain matters regarding Miss Boyle's disappearance." Kelly's jaw tightened. "I've said all I know. Weather was wild that night." Boyle stepped out to check the relieving platform. Next, we saw he was gone. Poirot looked up towards the catwalk circling the lantern room. The relieving platform. Might we see it? Kelly hesitated, then nodded. "If you must." We climbed the wrought iron stairs spiraling inside the tower halfway up the rhythmic sweep of the lens through distorted shadows on the walls. The great lamp hissed softly with the burn of paraffin. At the top, exposed to the full bite of the wind, we stepped onto the narrow platform. The metal railing was slick with moisture. Below stretched sheer cliffs falling straight to the rocks. Poirot pressed gloved fingers to the railing. "Tell me, monsieur, your colleague leaves his post in a storm. Why? What needed inspection that could not wait, risking life?" Kelly bristled. "The shutter jammed earlier that evening. Gale could tear it free. We lose the light, a ship could run ground. And Mr. Bole feared this." Poirot's gaze lingered. "Yet the shutter now, it appears, in excellent order." Kelly had no answer. Quinn shifted uneasily. The wind howled. I gripped the railing, conscious of the sheer drop below. Poirot, however, calmly surveyed the metal fittings, his eyes tracing bolts and hinges. At last, he pointed to a section near the hinge. "Fresh marks. Someone loosened and retightened this recently." O'Shea scowled. "Maintenance after the storm, surely." Poirot raised a brow. "Perhaps we descended." Inside the stone tower, warmth and stillness replaced the roar outside. Quinn remained near the door. Kelly led us to a small chamber used for note-keeping and rest. On the table lay the duty log, its leather binding cracked. Poirot gestured. "If we may." Kelly opened it reluctantly. Pages of cramped handwriting charted times, weather, and lamp operations. Poirot turned to the date of the disappearance. A faint water stain marred one corner. He ran a finger down the entries. Here, between the 6th and the 8th hours of the watch, a gap. "Where is the entry for the 7th hour?" Kelly stiffened. That page tore loose. Same night, wind, rain. Poirot leaned closer. The torn edge was clean, too clean. Curious. "The tear is straight, monsieur, as though cut." Quinn suddenly blurted. "It was storm damage. We said so to the inquiry." Poirot regarded him steadily. "Monsieur Quinn, truth does not alter with repetition. Only the teller grows tired." Quinn flushed and turned away. Poirot closed the logbook gently. "One more question, if you permit. On the night of the storm, did either of you leave the tower?" Kelly's eyes narrowed. "We hold to our posts. No one leaves without reason." Poirot nodded slowly. "Indeed, without reason." Outside, we paused near the edge of the cliff. Mist thinned just enough to reveal white spray leaping against jagged stone. Poirot surveyed the ground between lighthouse and outbuilding, eyes narrowing. Hastings observed the soil-disturbed ruts of wheels. Perhaps the supply cart. Poirot shook his head. "None. The cart for provisions arrives Thursdays. This is fresh within a few days." O'Shea frowned. A local fisherman may have come to trade extra oil or provisions. Poirot turned sharply. The lighthouse logs list all trades for accountability. I saw no such record. O'Shea looked away. There is another possibility, Poirot murmured. The illicit trade smuggling. Here, the inspector snapped. Old wives' tales. Poirot offered a small shrug. Perhaps a woman approached from the outbuilding, a figure in a dark shawl, bare feet silent on wet stones. She carried a bucket but halted when she saw us. Her face was sharp-featured, eyes wary. That's Elise O'Malley, O'Shea muttered. Servant here cooks for the keepers. Pooh raised his hat politely. Bonjour, mademoiselle. You work here at the lighthouse? She nodded slowly. Were you here on the night Miss Boyle disappeared? Her hand tightened on the bucket handle. Yes. You saw or heard anything unusual? A long pause, then quietly. A lantern outside very late. The light moved towards the cliff path. Michael Boyle. She shook her head. Too tall. Walk different. Whom did you tell? No one listened. They said I was seeing things. Fog plays tricks. She turned away abruptly. Poirot watched her depart. There, he said softly. A simple statement, Hastings, yet illuminating. We returned toward our lodging by foot, O'Shea accompanying us. The inspector's face wore a troubled frown. These are hard-working men, he said fiercely. I'll not see them slandered without proof, Poirot replied evenly. Proof comes when one sees what is missing. Inspector the torn page. Its absence is itself a presence. The path curved near an outcropping that overlooked a narrow ledge descending to the sea. Poirot stopped abruptly, his gaze fixed on rocks below. Hastings, do you see there on the stone? I squinted. At first, nothing. Then a glint. We scrambled down the narrow path, sliding over wet grass. Lodged between two rocks lay a small metal object, a watch fob, tarnished, engraved faintly with initials. M.B., I read aloud. Poirot wrapped it carefully in his handkerchief. O'Shea exhaled sharply. Could have washed you anywhere from the coast. Poirot said nothing. His eyes turned inland toward the lighthouse dim in the shifting mist. We reached the cottage shortly before dusk. Mrs. Boyle awaited us at the gate, her face suddenly stricken as Poirot presented the fob. She clutched it to her breast. It's his, she whispered. I gave it to him for our 10th anniversary. Poirot spoke softly. Madame, did you know of any quarrels between your husband and the other keepers? She hesitated. He mentioned disagreements, something about stock counts of oil. He said records didn't match supplies. Missing oil? I asked. Mrs. Boyle nodded. Poirot sat at the small kitchen table. Madame, this is delicate. Did your husband ever allude to financial matters, debts, insurance? Her eyes flickered nervously. He said we were secure, that the policy would protect me should something happen. But he warned me never to speak of it to outsiders. Inspector O'Shea stiffened. Who besides Michael knew of this policy? She looked away. The agent in Port Major, Mr. Rafferty. Poirot stood. We visit him tomorrow. Thunder rumbled in the distance. A storm gathered again. The widow extinguished a lamp and barred the shutters. Outside as we left, I sensed movement near the stone wall, a shadow slipping out of sight. When I turned, nothing remained but darkness. Poirot paused, listening to the sea. Hastings, the waves erode the cliffs, revealing secrets. His voice dropped. But sometimes secrets are buried deliberately. Someone here benefits from Mr. Boyle's death, and I do not think it is his widow. The wind rose, carrying salt and the faint tolling of a buoy somewhere beyond vision. We walked back through the rising storm, and I could not suppress the feeling that every footfall was observed from the darkness. The lighthouse, framed by lightning flashes, kept its steady pulse, though now I wondered whether it warned of danger or concealed it. This channel exists for one music reason: to keep classic detective stories alive, told properly, music with care, atmosphere, and respect for the tradition. Since December, Music 2024, these stories have been written, produced, and published by just two people: Music, my wife, and myself. We do all of it. The music writing, the research, the recording, the editing, and the visuals. It has never been a large operation. Music. It has always been a small, careful one. The stories have always been freely available here with no paywall and no gimmicks. Many of you listen while driving, working, or winding music down at night. That part has not changed. What has changed is how this work is supported. Recently, this channel was demonetized by YouTube. There was no warning, no music-specific video cited, and no clear explanation. Overnight, the income that paid our rent and supported our family of 3, disappeared. The work did not change. The audience did not disappear. Only the support system did. Before platforms and algorithms, creative work survived in a simpler and more honest way. Readers supported writers, listeners supported storytellers directly, not through advertising systems or opaque rules, but because the work itself had music value to them. That is where this channel now stands. If these stories have kept you company, helped you sleep, or offered a quiet escape, there are a few ways to support the work, clearly and transparently. On Patreon, support is monthly and structured, and you get 2 extra stories per week. Some listeners simply want ad-free episodes and early access, and that is what the Music Early Access Explorer tier provides, and is priced at only $2.99 per month. Others enjoy seeing how the stories are built, the notes, influences, and decisions behind them. And that is what the writing table offers, along with voting on future themes and credit. For those who want the complete archive, the Archive Music Society includes everything already mentioned, plus quarterly ebooks collecting the stories in print form. There are also higher tiers for commission stories for those who wish to go further. For those who prefer not to commit monthly, there is also a Buy Me a Coffee link in the description for one-off support. The stories are also available beyond YouTube. You can find them on Spotify if you prefer audio platforms, and on Rumble as an alternative home, where the channel is not dependent on a single system. And finally, sharing the channel matters more than most people realize. A recommendation, to the right listener, often does more than any algorithm ever did. This channel will continue only if it deserves to. And that decision now belongs to the community, not a platform. If you stay with us, thank you. If you have already supported the music channel, you are directly supporting our family and the work itself. The stories are still here, and for now, the lights are still on. Chapter 3. The Agent in Port Maggi. The storm battered the coast through the night. By dawn, the worst had passed, leaving a raw wind that scoured the island clean. We crossed to the mainland on the morning ferry. A chill, rains slicked passage in a boat that groaned with every swell. Poirot, wrapped in his coat, observed the gray horizon with narrowed eyes. Hastings' storms wash away footprints. But they also reveal what was hidden beneath the sand. I made no comment. My thoughts were on the widow and her haunted eyes, on the glint of metal among the rocks, and on Elis Ali's murmured warning. Inspector O'Shea accompanied us, his manner tense. "Port Maggi is small," he muttered. "Rafferty will talk. He always does." The town crouched beside the harbor like a cluster of damp stones, roofs bowed under years of salt air. The insurance agent's office occupied a cramped building wedged between a chandler and a public house. The painted, Sign, Rafferty and Company, Assurance and Brokerage, peeled in strips. Inside smelled of damp paper and pipe smoke. Mr. Rafferty himself emerged from a back room, thin, balding spectacles perched precariously. Inspector, gentlemen, to what do I owe the honor? His eyes darted between us. Poirot wasted no time. We inquire about a life insurance policy taken by Michael Bowl, lighthouse keeper. Raffet's lips tightened. Unfortunate business. Most unusual. A man of modest means taking a policy that size. Poirot sat opposite him, steepling his fingers. $500, was it not? And who brought the matter to Boyle's attention? Rafferty hesitated. He came to me. Poirot tilted his head unprompted. The agent fidgeted. Well, he may have overheard a conversation. I was arranging policies for several men on the coast. Fishermen, lighthouse service, that sort. The sea takes men quickly. Families left with nothing. Poirot's gaze sharpened. Did any of Bowles' colleagues take similar policies? Raffet's eyes flicked to O'Shea. I'd rather not say names. Poirot leaned in. Monsieur, we deal with death. Silence serves only the guilty. Speak. Rafferty swallowed hard. Fine. Kelly took a small one. Quinn did not. Boyle's was largest by far. Paid monthly premium without fail. Poirot exchanged a glance with me. Who witnessed the policy documents? Rafferty rummaged through a stack of papers. Boyle signed. Kelly witnessed standard practice. Poirot froze. Kelly, his fellow keeper. Happens often on these contracts, Rafferty said defensively. Men witness for each other. Pooh tapped the desk lightly. And when Boyle vanished, you sent an investigator from Cork. Name? Rafferty's face blanched. Mr. Harrow. Good man. Asked pointed questions. Rumors that Bowles suspected tampering with oil supplies, missing stock. Harrow meant to speak to the Lighthouse board in Dublin, but he drowned before reaching home. Pugh nodded slowly. Convenient misfortune. Rafferty bristled. Are you accusing? Poirot stood abruptly. I accuse no one. I observe motives forming like storm clouds. Outside, O'Shea confronted him. Kelly witnessing doesn't mean foul play. Boyle trusted him. Poirot walked toward the quay, coat tugged by the wind. Trust, Inspector, is the currency of betrayal. Those closest to a duty may exploit it. We reached the harbor edge. Fishermen hauled nets dripping with weed. Poirot studied the bustle, then spoke softly. Money is not the only motive here. Fear also. Fear of what? I asked. Poirot pointed toward the sea. Fear of exposure. We returned to Valencia that afternoon. Clouds had thickened again. Light swallowed to a dull gloom. As we approached Mrs. Bowles' cottage, Elise O'Malley stepped from behind the low stone wall. Her shawl clung tight about her, hair whipped by the wind. She glanced nervously behind her before speaking. You asked about that night, she whispered. There's more. Poirot gave a slight bow. We listen, mademoiselle. She wrung her hands. Michael Bowl came to the kitchen late evening. He asked for lantern. Boyle said he needed to check the shutter. I filled the lamp and handed it to him. Poirot nodded. He then left through the courtyard. No. He waited. Someone arrived. A voice trembled. Patrick Kelly, they argued. Boyle said the logs must be correct or someone would pay dearly. Poirot's eyes gleamed. And Kelly's reply. He said Boyle should hold his tongue. Then Kelly left towards the tower. Boyle followed minutes later. Did anyone else go out? She hesitated. Poirot waited. Yes, but I must not say. Must not, or fear to? Poe asked gently. Elise stepped back. They'll send me away if I talk. I need the wages. Poirot took a coin purse, extracted several sovereigns, and pressed them into her hand. This is not payment for silence, but for courage. If you lose employment, I shall assist. Her voice broke. Quinn. He left after Kelly, I saw his lantern through the fog. Poirot frowned. Quinn claimed he remained inside. She nodded. He lied. Before we could ask more, she hurried away along the path, shawl snapping like a pennant in the wind. O'Shea cursed under his breath. If Quinn lied. Poirot raised a hand. Let us proceed step by step. Quinn leaves the tower with a lantern. Why? To observe, to assist, or to intercept? Mrs. Bowl opened the door, surprise flashing across her face. Poirot spoke gently. Madame, tell me, did your husband speak of anyone beyond the keepers? She hesitated. He received letters unsigned. I never saw them, but he hid them inside the logbook. Poirot stiffened. The missing page, of course. Mrs. Bowl reached into a small box and extracted a folded scrap. I found this beneath the drawer liner after he vanished. Poirot opened it. A single line in slanted hand. Stop counting. Some light should remain dim. Poirot folded it carefully. This is a threat, madame. Her face palled. What does it mean? Pooh paced slowly. Oil talk missing. Logs altered. Lighthouse light dimmed intentionally. Ships depend on consistent brightness. If the oil is siphoned for sale to smugglers, perhaps the beam weakens. A ship could wreck. O'Shea swore softly. Smuggling rings run the channel. If Bowl discovered missing oil, he'd have leverage. Pugh gazed toward the dark silhouette of the tower beyond. And if he threatened exposure, he signed his death. We returned to the lighthouse at dusk. Kelly greeted us stiffly. Quinn lingered behind, eyes anxious. Poirot spoke without preamble. Mr. Quinn, you said no one left the tower during the storm. Quinn swallowed. True. Elise O'Malley saw you leave. Kelly shot Quinn a warning glance. Quinn's voice faltered. I stepped out briefly only to secure a shutter. Poirot advanced a step and afterwards you returned alone. Quinn nodded quickly. Yes. Poirot turned to Kelly. And you, monsieur? Did you follow Quinn later to check the relieving platform? Kelly glared. Boyle took that duty. Poirot's tone sharpened. But Elise overheard your quarrel about logs, about paying dearly. Kelly's jaw clenched. She heard what she wished. Boyle was restless, talked nonsense about missing. Oil, imagined conspiracies. Poirot nodded slowly. Tell me, monsieur, if oil stocks dwindled beyond record, who would answer to the board? Kelly hesitated. The senior keeper. Poirot's voice dropped. And you are the senior. Quinn stepped forward suddenly. Enough questions. We've worked. Poirot regarded him calmly. Indeed. Work that can kill men if misused. The two men retreated into the tower. Pooh turned to us. The pieces align, but the picture is not complete. Someone else holds the key. Perhaps the supply ledger or the harbor register. We must speak to the supply master. O'Shea nodded. I'll send for the ledgers from the mainland. Poirot stared at the rotating beam above. Tomorrow, Hastings, we climb again. But tonight we watch. We took positions along a ridge overlooking the lighthouse. The wind cut like a knife. Hours passed. Midnight approached. Poirot stiffened suddenly. There. A light moved near the outbuilding, low, furtive, shielded. Quinn's shape emerged, lantern covered. He slipped toward the cliff path, pausing to ensure no one saw. Poirot's whisper was cold. He returns to the scene, either to hide or retrieve. We followed at a distance. The path descended towards rocks slick with spray. Quinn knelt near a crevice and reached inside. Poirot lunged forward, seizing his wrist. Quinn cried out, lantern falling, snuffed in the wind. Poirot withdrew an oil ledger wrapped in cloth. Quinn struggled. Only's eyes blazed. To destroy evidence. Voila! Lightning split the horizon, illuminating Quinn's terrified face, the churning sea below, and the solitary beams sweeping in relentless rhythm. Poirot whispered. One of the three keepers is guilty of murder. But which Quinn hides ledgers, Kelly witnessed the policy. Boyle vanished. A threat, a torn page, a clandestine light signal. O'Shea grabbed Quinn roughly. "You'll answer for this." But Poirot lifted a hand. "Not yet. He is frightened, and perhaps not the only one complicit." The storm intensified. Above the lighthouse, flashed, a heartbeat against the void. Poirot murmured, "Tomorrow we confront the truth. Tonight the sea keeps her secret still." We climbed back toward the dim glow of the cottage, rain beginning to lash the cliffs, and I could not shake the sense that unseen eyes watched from the tower windows, patient, calculating, waiting for dawn. Chapter 4. The Ledger and the Lantern. The gale persisted through the night, rattling shutters and sending loose stones skittering across the cottage roof. I slept little. Poirot, for his part, sat upright in the armchair when dawn arrived, boots polished, eyes alert. The man's capacity for wakefulness remains a marvel to me. At breakfast, Inspector O'Shea arrived bearing a sodden leather satchel. "Ledgers from the supply master in Cursivian," he said, dropping it on the table. "Oil shipments, spare parts, maintenance requisitions, everything sent to the lighthouse for the last year." Poirot opened the satchel reverently, as if it were a reliquary. Inside were sheaves of paper bound by string, edges curled from damp. "Hastings," Poirot murmured, "kindly make a list of dates where oil shipments occurred near storms." I complied, though the task was dull and painstaking. Several columns caught my attention. Quantity delivered, quantity remaining, consumption rate. What caught Poirot's attention, however, were the discrepancies. "Inspector, observe. Shipments recorded by the mainland supply officer exceed lighthouse usage by a significant margin in 3 distinct periods." O'Shea frowned, meaning the oil went somewhere else. Poirot nodded. "But how and why? Profit perhaps, or bribery? Smugglers require signals. Dimming the light selectively would be convenient. One flash longer, one shorter, so a vessel knows when to approach unseen." The inspector palled. "So Bowl notices oil missing and logs altered. He threatens exposure. That gives motive." Poirot raised a finger. "A motive for one man, but perhaps not the only man." He lifted the cloth-wrapped ledger Quinn had attempted to conceal. Carefully untying the twine, he opened it. The pages were dense with numbers and subtle alternations, some entries scraped and overwritten, others entirely missing. Poirot compared the lighthouse logs to the supply ledger. His lips tightened. "Hastings Sea on the night Boyle vanished. The oil level drop is small, too small given storm usage. A forged figure would show less consumed, implying less discrepancy." O'Shea leaned over the table. "So whoever forged this wanted it to appear nothing unusual occurred. Means Bowles' suspicions were accurate." Poirot closed the ledger abruptly. "We must return to the tower, the workroom, the desk." The lighthouse interior was dim, still recovering from the power of the storm. Quinn, pale and sweating, leaned against the wall. Kelly stood stiffly beside him, eyes narrowed, jaw clenched. Poirot addressed them quietly. "Mesher, we discovered the ledger buried among rocks. Someone wished it removed from sight." Kelly glanced sharply at Quinn. Quinn's eyes darted away. Pooh turned toward the logbook. "May I?" Kelly opened his mouth as if to protest, then thought better and stepped aside. Pooh examined the torn edge again. Taking his pocket knife, he compared the tear to the edge of the ledger page, lining them up edge to edge. Hastings' note, identical dimensions. The missing page fits into this ledger, which means the logbook was altered to align with forged ledger figures. Quinn swallowed loudly. O'Shea stepped forward. "Quinn, did you tear that page?" "No," he said too quickly. Kelly snapped. Say nothing, lad. Poirot raised his hand. Enough. We require clarity, not bluster. He opened a lower drawer of the desk. A faint metallic clink caught his ear. He reached inside and withdrew a small brass lantern. Traces of soot darkened around the shutter slits. Monsieur Kelly, Poirot said, holding it up. This is a signaling lantern, is it not? The shutter can be opened and closed rhythmically. Kelly stiffened. It's a storm. Lantern, nothing more. Poirot clicked the mechanism. Yet the shutter tension has been adjusted recently, and the soot deposits suggest prolonged use outside. A signaling device, perhaps. Quinn stepped backward, face ashen. Poirot's tone remained almost conversational. The lighthouse light flash interval was altered by almost half a second, enough to communicate to a waiting ship. Yes. Kelly's hands shook, but his voice remained steady. If Bowles saw anything, he jumped to conclusions. Or was pushed, Poirot murmured. Silence stretched. Outside, the waves pounded the cliffs, relentless as a hammer against an anvil. Where was Eliso Ali that night? Poirot asked. Kelly's head snapped up. The servant girl she cooks, keeps to herself. Poirot's eyes narrowed. She is often in the courtyard. A lantern passed her window that night. Perhaps she saw more than she admits. O'Shea's voice hardened. Kelly, Quinn, stay here. If either of you leaves this tower, I'll post guards. Quinn sank onto a bench, staring at the floor. Kelly glared at us with sting hatred. Poirot whispered to me as we exited the tower. Guilt speaks loudly, Hastings, but innocence also fears. One of them lies to protect the other, or someone else entirely. We went in search of Elise. Her modest cottage lay near the base of the cliffs, accessible by a narrow footpath. Smoke curled from the chimney, though the windows were shuttered. Poirot knocked. Silence. He knocked again. At last, the door opened a crack. Elise appeared, eyes red as if from weeping. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. They'll see. Poirot smiled gently. Mademoiselle, truth requires courage. We seek only the facts. She stepped aside reluctantly, letting us enter. The room was small, tidy, bare of ornament. A single chair, a small hearth. Poirot sat. Tell us about Quinn. He left the tower twice, not once. She looked startled. How did you? Poirot gestured to the soot on the signaling lantern. He signaled someone at sea. A trader, perhaps. Or a smuggler. Did Bowles discover this? Elle sat heavily. I heard Bowles threaten to report them. The oil disappearing, the lantern at sea. He said he had proof in the log. Poirot leaned forward. Them? Not only Quinn. She hesitated. Kelly oversees the stores. Quinn handles the shutters. It takes both to dim the light. Pooh's eyes shone. And you, mademoiselle? What role did you play? Her face flushed. None. I knew Bowles suspected. He confided once. I told him not to confront them alone. Poirot's voice softened. You cared for him. Tears welled in her eyes. Yes. Pooh nodded slowly. Did his wife know? The girl looked away. She's a good woman, but Michael was lonely on the rock. She stayed on shore. We grew close only in talk. Nothing improper. Poirot asked gently. Did Bowles tell his wife about the smuggling? She shook her head violently. No. He planned to report Kelly directly. Said the board would send inspectors. Poirot's expression hardened, and Kelly ensured that plan never reached Dublin. Poirot rose. Thank you, Moiselle. You have risked much. She caught his sleeve. Be careful. Kelly is dangerous. Poirot's eyes glinted. Dangerous men rely on darkness. Hercule Poirot brings light. As we walked back toward the tower, dusk settling once more over the sea, Poirot stopped abruptly. Hastings, something is wrong. What? The widow, Mrs. Boile. She never asked how her husband died, only insisted he was murdered. No outrage, no grief, only fear. What are you implying? Poirot spoke quietly. Madame Bolle benefits greatly from the insurance, and she knew of the policy, unusually large. She warned us not to speak of it. But surely she wouldn't. Poirot cut me off. Perhaps she knew her husband intended to expose the smuggling, risking their security. A collaborator might manipulate events from shore. I stared at him, stunned. Her with Kelly? Poirot shook his head. Kelly profits from oil. Quinn follows orders, but who initiated the policy and who sent the anonymous note? We reached the lighthouse. Quinn paced nervously. Outside. Kelly was nowhere in sight. Poirot whispered. Quinn feared Kelly. Kelly feared exposure. But someone above them profited more. Someone orchestrated the insurance, the smuggling, and the threats. The sea roared beneath us, black water smashing into stone. Poirot gazed out at the ominous horizon. Hastings, he murmured. The true killer is not inside this tower, nor in the ledger. He is in the shadows between, the one whose hand never touches the oil, yet directs its course. The beam swept across the sea, precise once more, its interval corrected. Whoever tampered with the light had undone their work. Too late. Poirot had counted the beats. The storm returned in earnest. Lightning forked across the sky, illuminating the cliffs, and for a moment the path below, where fresh footprints led toward the rocks, but the wind erased them as quickly as they appeared. Music. If you've stayed with us this far, you're our kind of listener. And if you'd like more of these mysteries, without waiting, there is a private door you can step through. On Patreon, we publish 4 stories every week. Here on YouTube, you receive 2 music, and they arrive a couple of days later. So while this case unfolds here, our patrons are already ahead, already turning the next page, already stepping into the next drawing room, the next corridor, the next locked door. And because Patreon receives double the music weekly stories, not every case ever leaves that private archive. Some mysteries are kept Patreon exclusive, music filed away where only members can hear them. If you've missed them, 3 recent examples are waiting behind that door. Miss Marple and the Holly Wreath Murder. A Christmas house party where the holly itself becomes a warning and goodwill is used. Music as camouflage. Poirot. The Christmas Eve Silence. A London tobacconist. A scene staged to look simple and a silence that music was purchased for a reason. Veronica Lakewood, New Year's Eve, Jazz Age music. Chicago at midnight, where champagne hides calculation and the most dangerous people never raise their voices. On Patreon, you can choose your door. Early Access Explorer music for ad-free listening and early access. The writing table to vote on themes and see the behind-the-scenes notes. The Archive Society for quarterly ebook anthologies. Music, the mystery patron to submit ideas, or the private commission case for a fully custom story. If you want the extra cases, music, the early access, and the stories that never come to YouTube, Patreon is where they live. Chapter 5. The Gathering Storm. By morning the rain had eased, leaving the island slick and gray beneath a low ceiling of cloud. The Atlantic swelled with a slow, resentful heave. I found Poirot at the window of our lodging, watching the lighthouse beam fading in daylight. There is one fact incongruous, Hastings, he said softly. The beam's interval fluctuated, then returned to normal. Someone adjusted the mechanism. Again, in the night. To conceal tampering, Poirot shook his head, or to honor a schedule unknown to us. Inspector O'Shea arrived, boots slick with mud and face drawn with exhaustion. Kelly and Quinn barely slept, he said. One claims innocence, the other silence. Hard to read either. Poirot merely adjusted his cuffs. We shall read not their words, but their actions. At the tower, the keepers awaited us with strained expressions. Ellis Ali stood near the outbuilding, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the ground. Poirot addressed everyone. Monsieur, Madame, Mademoiselle. There are matters that require clarification. I shall ask questions. You will answer plainly. I seek nothing but truth. Kelly muttered under his breath, but Quinn nodded nervously. Poirot pointed to the ledger. This was buried beside the cliff. Why? Quinn stammered. We feared misunderstanding. The figures look wrong after the storm. Boyle misplaced entries often. Kelly snapped. Quiet, lad. Poirot raised a brow. You accuse Boyle of incompetence? Kelly folded his arms. He was troubled, distracted. Not himself those weeks. Poirot turned to O'Shea. Inspector, were disciplinary notes filed about Boyle? O'Shea frowned. None. Service record spotless. Poirot walked slowly around the room, eyes tracing walls, corners, the iron staircase. So Boyle grew uneasy, discovered discrepancies, yet said nothing officially. Why hesitate? Especially if he believed negligence endangered ships. Elise spoke suddenly, surprising all of us. He wanted proof first. He said, the truth must be certain before he accused anyone. Poirot regarded her carefully. A sensible man. A cautious man. Kelly scoffed or frightened of shadows. Poirot approached the window overlooking the sea. On the night he vanished, what ships were expected? O'Shea said, none scheduled. Shipping lanes passed farther out. Poirot's gaze sharpened. Unless a vessel sought the shore deliberately. Silence choked the narrow room. Poirot turned, voice light. Tell me, Inspector, who controls Lighthouse staffing assignments and reports to the board? O'Shea blinked. The harbor master at Cahersiveen reviews duty logs and requisitions. Poirot nodded slowly. So alterations in stock could be overlooked if the harbor master neglected to compare ledgers. A subtle shift occurred in the room. Kelly stiffened. Quinn's face palled. Elise covered her mouth. O'Shea scowled. Harbor master. I trust him as I trust any man in the service. Poirot smiled slightly. Trust is admirable, Inspector. Blind trust, less so. Later we walked along the cliffs. Mist drifted in damp veils across the path. Poirot examined the exposed rock carefully. Look, Hastings. Rust particles. Small but consistent. They fall from metal. Lantern fittings, perhaps. I kneeled. Hard to say. Poirot pointed to the cliff face. Observe. There are scratches along the stone, horizontal at shoulder height, something metal scraped repeatedly. A lantern swinging in wind. Pooh nodded. If a man descended part way, perhaps to hide something, or retrieve it. O'Shea stared down. Fall here and you'd vanish without trace. Poirot eyed the sea. Most convenient for an accident or murder, I said. Poirot's response was measured. We shall reserve judgment. We climbed back toward the tower. Elise hurried to meet us, breathless. Someone searched my cottage, she whispered. Drawers pulled out, floorboards disturbed, nothing taken. Poirot studied her pale face. Did you keep letters from Boyle? She swallowed. Yes. I destroyed them after you left yesterday. I feared. Poirot raised a hand. Your safety matters. Truth requires protection as much as exposure. O'Shea's jaw clenched. Who searched the cottage? Kelly and Quinn never left the tower. Poirot considered. Unless one slipped away unnoticed or someone else landed during the night. Impossible. The seas were brutal. Poirot smiled faintly. Impossible is a word men use when they do not wish to imagine alternatives. That evening the supply cart arrived unexpectedly early, hoarse steaming, from exertion. The driver dismounted, exchanged tour greetings and brought crates toward the outbuilding. Poirot observed every movement. Hastings, note the manifest. Oil delivered exceeds logged consumption. O'Shea examined the paper, eyes widening. More stock here than accounted for, even without Boyle's disappearance. Poirot closed his eyes momentarily, so the pattern predates the incident. The wind rose again. Dusk bled into night. Storm clouds masked above the Atlantic, a steel wall rolling inland. Poirot addressed the room quietly. Tomorrow night is crucial. A storm, a supply discrepancy, and scheduled shifts. Someone expects opportunity. O'Shea frowned. Meaning? Poirot answered without emotion. If there is a signaling arrangement, it will occur when the beam is obscured, when men are weary, when winds drown footsteps. Kelly muttered angrily. You're imagining conspiracies, monsieur. Poirot regarded him calmly. I imagine nothing. I observe patterns, altered logs, excess oil shipments, one man dead, another vanished, and ledgers buried. Thunder reverberated across the sea. The lighthouse beams swept the waves, slow, steady, hypnotic. Poirot spoke quietly. Tomorrow night, we keep watch again, together. This time we cast our eyes not only upon the sea, but upon each other. He extinguished the lamp. Outside, the cliffs groaned under the assault of wind and water, and somewhere in the darkness below, the sea whispered secrets that only the dawn might return. No one slept soundly. Chapter 6. The light at the end. The night descended with the quiet malice of a predator. Clouds smothered the stars and wind clawed at the cliffs. Far below, the Atlantic churned black and blind. The lighthouse beam revolved in its steady arc, slicing through sheets of rain. We took our positions. Inspector O'Shea inside the tower base, Quinn in the lamp room under strict watch. Kelly ordered to remain in the common room, and Elise sheltered within sight of the courtyard. Poirot and I positioned ourselves on the ridge overlooking the outbuildings, lantern hidden beneath an oilskin. Poirot stood unmoving, eyes narrowed against the rain. Hastings, tonight we witness not words, but actions. The guilty may attempt to complete unfinished work. The wind rose to a scream. Hours passed. Midnight neared. A faint light flickered near the supply cart. Poirot stiffened there. The beam dipped and moved toward the cliff path. Quick, furtive, shielded. Poirot signaled O'Shea with a flash. The inspector emerged, boot heels striking stone. We advanced silently. The lantern carrier descended toward the rocks. Rain obscured their shape, but the gait, hesitant, burdened, betrayed fear. As we neared, a sudden shout cut through the storm. Quinn, wild-eyed, lunged from the shadows and seized the lantern-bearer's arm. "You'll not vanish me like Boyle," he screamed. The lantern fell, smashing against the rocks below. Quinn grappled desperately. Inspector O'Shea and I ran forward, dragging Quinn back. Poe steadied the staggering figure. It was Mrs. Boyle, her hair plastered to her face, eyes frantic, hands clutching a bundle wrapped in oilskin. Pooh spoke quietly. "Madame, you intended to throw it into the sea." She trembled violently. "It's nothing. Old papers. Let me go, please." Poirot opened the bundle. Inside lay a stack of ledger pages torn from the logbook, along with several folded letters and the missing policy documents. O'Shea stared in disbelief. "You suppressed evidence." Mrs. Bowles sank to her knees, sobbing. "I wanted to protect him. He only wanted us safe." Poirot knelt beside her, voice calm. "The time has come, madam. Tell us the truth." Wind roared. Thunder rolled overhead. She looked into the void below as though tempted to fling herself after the lantern. "It was Kelly," she whispered. "Michael confronted him about the oil. Kelly threatened him. Said a ship waited offshore that night. Michael swore he'd go to the board. He said the light would expose a treachery. Kelly cornered him on the catwalk. I saw Quinn palded, rain streaming down his face. I knew Kelly was siphoning oil, but I never touched Boyle. Kelly said Bowl wanted help adjusting shutters. He said Bowl slipped." Mrs. Bowl shook her head fiercely. "No." Kelly struck him. Michael fell. O'Shea cursed under his breath. "We arrest Kelly for murder." Poirot raised his hand sharply. "No." All eyes turned toward him. The wind seemed to pause. Poirot's voice sharpened. "There is truth here, but not completeness. Hastings, recall Elise's words. They'll send me away if I talk. Who holds power enough to silence her? Not Kelly, a mere keeper. Not Quinn, a timid accomplice. Someone above them benefits." O'Shea frowned. "The harbor master." Poirot nodded slowly. He controlled inventory reconciliation. He overlooked discrepancies. He coordinated supply shipments exceeding need. And someone warned Bowl to stop counting. A man literate practiced in bureaucratic threats. The harbor master orchestrated the siphoning using Kelly and Quinn as agents. Mrs. Bowles stared, stunned. "But the insurance," Poirot continued, "a large policy witnessed by Kelly. Yet the broker Rafferty was nervous. Who recommended such a generous sum? The harbor master. If Bowl died, widow compensated. Harbor master eliminated threat and gained leverage, silence through complicity." O'Shea's face hardened. "So Kelly killed Boyle at the harbor master's command." Poirot shook his head. "Kelly obeyed cash before conscience. He believed ships unharmed. Only excess oil sold. When Bowl threatened exposure, Kelly panicked. In the storm, he met Bowl on the platform. They struggled. Boyle fell. Kelly, dragged into the courtyard by constables, glared defiantly. I didn't mean to kill him. He lunged for me, lost his grip. I tried to hold him, but his voice broke. The sea took him." Poirot's stare remained cold. "And Mr. Harrow, the investigator?" Kelly swallowed hard. "He came asking questions. Bowl wrote to him. Kelly intercepted the letter, but Harrow came anyway. I told the harbor master. He said Harrow would drown too." Inspector O'Shea gripped his pistol. "That's 2 murders." Poirot raised a hand. "Let us be precise. Only Boyle's death ties directly to Kelly's hand. Harrow's demise remains suspicious but unproven. Yet motive and opportunity align." Kelly's sagged, rain-washing grime down his face. "I wanted out after Harrow. Harbor master said, if I spoke, my body would wash ashore next." Quinn, trembling violently, whispered, "I never touched Boyle. I only signaled ships for coin. Kelly handled stores." Poirot nodded. "Your crime is complicity, not murder." Mrs. Bowles sobbed softly. "Michael knew he'd die if he exposed them. He told me to take the payout and leave the island if anything happened. I thought destroying the pages would prevent another death." Poirot replied gently, "You acted out of fear, not malice." The storm raged, but a strange calm settled among us. Poirot turned to O'Shea. "You will telegraph Cahertiven at first light. Arrest the harbor master before word reaches him. Kelly stands charged with manslaughter, perhaps murder. Quinn with conspiracy to defraud. Mrs. Boyle must face inquiry for concealing official records, but with leniency recommended." O'Shea nodded grimly. Poirot faced the sea. The lighthouse exists to warn ships from treachery, yet treachery lived within its walls. Duty compromised by greed, and death disguised as accident. Lightning illuminated the tower. For an instant, the beam froze mid-rotation, then continued its patient sweep. Poirot spoke softly, almost to himself. "Storms do not kill men by choice. Men kill men, and blame the sea." In the days that followed, arrests proceeded. Elise left the island for Cork with assistance from O'Shea. Mrs. Boyle departed quietly at dawn, clutching the fob recovered from the rocks. Quinn awaited trial, guilt gnawing more fiercely than law, and the harbor master, cornered by evidence and testimony, confessed to orchestrating the smuggling but denied ordering violence. As we boarded the ferry, I wrote final notes. Poirot watched the lighthouse recede, a slender white tower against endless gray. "Evil," he said, "thrives where monotony dulls vigilance. Even the light may dim if men twist its purpose." The sea rolled beneath us, indifferent as ever. The beam swept one final arc across the waters, pure, unwavering, obedient to its calling once more. Poirot turned away. "Come, mon ami. Another case awaits. And this one, its ghosts will linger in the fog for many years." The ferry pulled from shore. Valentia Island vanished, and with it the secrets of those who served the light and betrayed it. Epilogue. Valencia Island lighthouse keeper disappearance, 1890s. Here are the key historical contours, stripped of fiction and speculation. In the late 19th century, a lighthouse keeper serving on the western light of Valencia Island disappeared during severe Atlantic weather. His body was never recovered. A formal inquiry by lighthouse authorities determined accidental death, presumed to have been swept from the platform while checking shutters or relieving machinery during a gale. That explanation never satisfied locals. Several persistent irregularities fueled rumor and doubt. Conflicting accounts from fellow keepers about the time and circumstances of his last sighting. Inconsistencies in the duty log, including scratched-out entries and a missing page. A boot found weeks later at Foilhomurrum, washed clean, laces still tied. Evidence of repairs to shutters that did not align with logbook entries. Insurance taken shortly before the disappearance. A private investigator who drowned shortly after visiting the lighthouse to verify the claim. These details recorded in scattered maritime notes, parish accounts, newspapers, and transmitted orally through the community never congealed into proof of wrongdoing. No keeper was arrested, no smuggling inquiry opened, and no link between missing materials and the disappearance was proven. The official verdict remained unchanged. Accidental fall in rough weather. What remains is uncertainty made harder by the unforgiving setting. Lighthouse duty demanded stoic acceptance of isolation, harsh weather, and risk. Men lived and worked in close quarters, and the sea was always available as witness or accomplice. The Valencia disappearance illustrates the fragility of fact, where evidence is swallowed by tide. The ambiguity leaves a vacuum easily filled by rumor, smuggling, forged logs, insurance motive, internal conflict, even murder. Without a body and without preserved records, the truth stayed offshore. The light kept turning, the watch resumed, and the sea erased what happened between those keepers on the night a man walked out into the storm and never returned. Some of you have asked if there's another way to support us right now. There is one we'd like to share, and it's something my wife and I created together. Alongside Nocturnal Tales, we wrote a children's book called Sherlock, Pause, and the Diamond of the Nile, available on Amazon. It's a classic detective story reimagined for younger readers with one important music twist. Sherlock Holmes is a dog. In this story, Sherlock Poirot and his loyal companion, Dr. Spot, music set off on an adventure to Egypt, where a valuable diamond has vanished. With noses twitching and tails wagging, they rely on observation, music logic, and attention to detail to uncover the truth. It's a mystery full of friendship, travel, and discovery. Adventurous, but always warm and age-appropriate. The goal of the book is simple: to introduce children to detective thinking in a way that feels playful and engaging. Instead of noise and spectacle, the story rewards curiosity. Children are encouraged to notice clues, think things, music through, and enjoy how small details matter, just as they do in classic mysteries. If you have children, music, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, or young readers in your family, this is a story, music, we genuinely believe they might enjoy. And if you're looking for a way to support music, our work during this difficult period, purchasing the book helps us directly while giving something tangible, thoughtful, and fun in return. As always, there's no obligation. We simply wanted to share something we made together with the same care we put into everything else. The link is in the description, and thank you truly for being here. That was The Light at Foilhomurrum, a case where the sea took the blame. But music, it was human greed, fear, and quiet compromise that did the real drowning. A missing keeper, cooked ledgers, a dimmed light used as a music signal, and a whole little community deciding how much truth they could live with. In the comments. I'd be curious to know, at what point did you music start to suspect the lighthouse wasn't just a backdrop, but part of the crime itself? Did you put the pieces together around the oil, the altered intervals of the beam and the ledgers, music before Poirot laid it all out? And did your suspicion land first on Kelly, Quinn, the harbor master, or the widow? The short epilogue you heard at the end draws on a real 19th century Valencia Island disappearance. A lighthouse keeper lost in a storm. No body, irregular logs, and rumors that never quite hardened into proof. Our story imagines one possible version of the kind of human drama that might hide behind an accidental fall when the only true witness is the sea. If you'd like to help keep Nocturnal Tales alive now that YouTube has music demonetized the channel, here is what actually moves the needle. Patreon, the main support. From a few euros a month, you get early adre listening, and on the higher tiers, our monthly mystery ebooks and extras. Music. Buy me a coffee, a straightforward way to tip if this particular music case earned its keep. Rumble and Spotify and other podcast platforms. Just search for Nocturnal Tales and follow there. Those listens still generate revenue. On YouTube, music itself, subscriptions, likes, full listens, comments, and sharing an episode with someone who loves classic detective fiction still help with visibility. Music, even if they no longer pay anything financially. Thanks for spending your time with Poirot Hastings, and a lighthouse that didn't shine quite as honestly as it should. Until the next case, keep one eye on the horizon and never trust a convenient accident at the edge of a cliff. Music.